And Glenn, it is pretty frustrating watching this play out. There's a great need in America right now. And what do you think of what you're seeing in Congress?
Look, I wish they would prioritize stimulus over these Supreme Court hearings myself. Becky, I'd like to, and the reason for this is I'd like to underscore something that Bill Gates said just on your show here, which is how bad the American response has been to the crisis. He went through the details. I don't need to reiterate them for him, but the outcomes, both health outcomes and economic outcomes in this country are much worse than they needed to be and much worse than our economic peers. There's a study, for instance, up on the Brookings website now that demonstrates that if the United States had the healthcare and economic outcomes at the average of the OECD countries, just the average, we would have had more than 100,000 less deaths and 8.6 million more people employed. So as a consequence of the poor management of the crisis, which Bill Gates outlined, I think, very astutely and in depth, we have an economy that continues to suffer worse than it needed to be. And with the crisis, with the fall resurgence of the virus, the situation is likely to get worse. We've seen a lot, as for example, a lot more layoffs since the September 30 jobs reports. And even that was pretty bad because a number of the furloughed people had gone to being permanently laid off. So the economy is very weak, especially for the vulnerable populations in these communities of color. The consequence of that is that we really, really need significant stimulus. My view is on the order of about $2 trillion. And some of the economic studies that have come out now, very preliminarily, but from the first round, there's another one up on the Brookings website by Louise Shaner and Wendy Edelberg that demonstrates that unemployment insurance is the most powerful tool we have now. So I would have a very large bill with a very substantial piece focused on unemployment insurance and get that going very, very quickly.
It sounds like President Trump wants a big bill and wants it quickly, too. Why doesn't Nancy Pelosi take him up on that and leave it to the Senate to figure it out?
I'm not expert on the politics, but I'm not exactly sure how anybody interprets what President Trump wants. He's been so back and forth on this over the last couple of weeks. But I do think it's time to get the type of negotiations work between the Treasury Secretary and Pelosi in the past should work now. As I say, they're prioritizing. Look, we're in the middle of political season, so the politics are hot and heavy, and there's nothing we can do about that. They're prioritizing the Supreme Court hearings for reasons we all understand, but I really wish they'd get back to paying attention to the economy and the needs of the American people, particularly those who are the most vulnerable.
Glenn, the economic impact, what you foresee happening, most people we talk to say, look, it is needed stimulus, and the longer you wait, the more heavy the damage that will be done, the harder it is to undo any of that. Do you have anything at the Brookings Institute where you are kind of measuring out how much worse it is on a weekly basis?
Well, I think the way to think about this, there are two or three things. One is there's some amount of this which is just pure dead weight loss. In other words, the longer you wait to stimulate the economy to get back to the growth trend we had prior to the pandemic, the more lost economic output that just goes away. And that's what's known as dead weight loss. And so that's what we're dealing with right now. Big point number one. And so getting back to the growth trend that we had prior to the pandemic, this study I've referenced shows that requires about $2 trillion of stimulus pretty quickly. The second is that the longer people are left unemployed, the more detached they become from their jobs, the harder it is for them to find new jobs, and those new jobs require new skills at new employers. And so that, again, most people think has long-term consequences. And then third, the longer these small businesses, which is the engine of the American economy, stay closed, the more of them are permanently closed. And the Yelp data on that, which you cited a couple of times on your show, is not very encouraging. So it's really time to get the paddles out, charge them, and hit the economy, and get the heart beating again. So and the longer we wait, the harder it gets.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.